Hi, my name is Stephanie Ateo. Welcome to the 2020 Night to Shine training. This year we're doing things a little bit differently. If you remember from last year, you had to attend a training. This year we're going to do a PowerPoint. I advise you to get a pencil and paper, take some notes, and then you can bring those questions with you because on January 12th at the formal training, I will be there for any questions that you may have. So please follow along. You can watch this video as many times as you want. Take some notes, and then if you have any questions or any concerns, then please, bring those concerns to me when you see me. Last year, as you may recall, if you were here for the in-person training, we went over some of the characteristics of individuals with disabilities, and some of you may have found those tips very helpful when working with our guests at Night to Shine. So we're just going to go through this PowerPoint slide by slide. I advise you to get a pencil and paper and take some notes if needed, and you may ask questions when you see me on January 12th at the formal training. So let's look a little bit into characteristics of disabilities. What kind of disabilities are we going to see at Night to Shine? Did you know that there are 14 categories of disabilities? Well, today I'm going to just focus on just two, which are the types that we might see at Night to Shine: autism and intellectual disability. Autism is now referred to as ASD, Autism Spectrum Disorder, because it is a broad spectrum that ranges from individuals who have very mild impairment to severe impairment. Some individuals may be nonverbal, and some may be very high functioning. So ASD refers to a broad range of conditions characterized by challenges with repetitive behaviors, speech, and nonverbal communication. So there are many subtypes of autism that affects individuals to varying degrees. And each individual has their own unique set of challenges. So if you know one individual with autism, you just know that individual with autism. There are some characteristics that led to the diagnosis, but you have to remember that each guest at Night to Shine is an individual with their own unique likes and dislikes and characteristics. So for examples of individuals with a form of autism, formerly known as Asperger's syndrome, they're very high functioning, but they might have trouble in social situations. So if you think of Sheldon from Big Bang Theory and how he is extremely intelligent, but he has extreme difficulty in social situations and knowing the right thing to say, that would be typical of somebody with Asperger's syndrome. So some common signs of autism or ASD, so a doctor or a teacher or a parent might notice that a child was once speaking, but then they have a loss of that previously acquired speech. They might have very limited interest. For example, they may fixate on numbers or train schedules. They may often avoid eye contact because eye contact is extremely stimulating for an individual with autism, and it's very difficult for them to maintain eye contact for a long time. So they will be listening to you and will be able to follow directions, but they might not necessarily be able to look at you for a long time, and they're not being rude, it's just they're not able to do it. Resistance to minor changes in routine or surroundings can be very disturbing, so that's something to look out for in our buddies and guests at Night to Shine. At Night to Shine, this might be completely new to all of our guests or most of our guests. We'll have guests who are returning from last year, but it was a year ago, so they might not remember anything. And so for some guests, new people, new surroundings can be extremely challenging. The noise can be challenging, so that's why we have a quiet room, which I'll talk about a little bit later. If some of our guests are having a really, really hard time and the noise and all of the stuff that's going on is too much for them, then we can take them to a quiet environment. You might see some repetitive behaviors such as rocking, flapping, and spinning. In the field of education, we do have methods that we use to reduce these behaviors, but because you're a non-familiar person to your guest, I would say to just, ignore it.
individuals with autism often have unusual and intense reactions to sounds, lights, smells, or textures. So if something is too loud, they may cover their ears. They're blocking out the noise. If you're talking too loud, they'll let you know. They'll basically just put their fingers in their ears and they will block you out. Bright lights, unusual smells, or different textures, which is why they sometimes refuse to wear certain clothes and stuff like that. So if your buddy is covering their ears or they're rocking excessively, it might be that they really want to get out of the situation and so they need a break. So you can ask someone to direct you to the quiet room. If their parent has provided noise canceling headphones for them, that would be a good time to put those headphones on. Another sign would be minimal interaction with peers. They prefer to play alone or parallel play with peers. So teachers, we often notice that individuals who have autism, they will play alongside a peer in the classroom, but they're not necessarily playing together. So one child will have their game going on and another child will have their game going on, but they won't be interacting with each other and getting them to try to notice what they're doing. So they're kind of like in their own little universe, and that's another common sign with individuals with autism. Okay, moving on to characteristics of intellectual disability. This was formerly referred to as mental retardation, which is not a term that we use anymore. I know way back in the day, it was often acceptable to say that someone was retarded, and it might be something that you often hear, that you might hear that term used, but it's considered unacceptable and offensive to individuals with disabilities. So some of the characteristics are an IQ below 70. So if you're looking at the general population, a normal IQ is considered to be around 100. So they're basically two standard deviations from the norm. So they'd be below 70. Significant limitations on adaptive behaviors such as self-care, socializing, communicating, and daily living. So it's often some of our guests might need help in the bathroom. Some of them might be independent in the bathroom. Some might need help if they're independent mostly, but they might just need help with buttons and fastens and stuff like that. Some common syndromes associated with intellectual disability is Down syndrome, which is genetic, so they get an extra chromosome. Fragile X syndrome is also genetic, and fetal alcohol syndrome is environmental. So it basically just means that the mother drank alcohol in the womb whilst the child was in the womb, and the fetus got some of that toxins. Sometimes the mother just didn't know that she was pregnant, and so these things sometimes happen. Characteristics of Down syndrome. Almond-shaped eyes that are up-slanted, a smaller, flatter nose, a protruding tongue, which often affects their speech, so they might sometimes be difficult to understand. You may have to listen very carefully and take other cues as to what they're trying to tell you. Shorter in stature and usually heavier set. And often with an intellectual disability, but the IQ range can vary. So you might see individuals with Down syndrome who can hold a job, or they're an actor, or you might see some movie stars or models. They're able to support themselves in some way, and they need minimal support. And then there are some who are intellectually challenged to a more severe degree, and they need optimal support. So they have a lower than average adaptive skills, which is daily living, which can also vary amongst individuals. So you might have some who are independent, can get themselves up in the morning and dressed, and then other individuals who might need a lot more support with their daily living skills, such as eating and dressing. So it's just something to look out for. See how they do when they're eating, if they need help cutting stuff, or if they don't need that help, then give them that respect of being as independent as they possibly can. So if you remember from last year, we did talk a lot about people first language. People First language is something that has been recently introduced because quite often we'll refer to an individual as an autistic kid or the Downs kid, or and in the field of education, especially special education, we really want people to see the person first. They're a person like you and I, and they have likes and dislikes, and maybe one likes soccer and one likes to eat pizza, and someone else likes hot dogs, and they have all of these different things about them. The disability isn't only what defines them. So People First language refers to the individual first and their disability second. So we have to think about how would Jesus see this person. And it eliminates generalizations and stereotypes and assumptions by focusing on the person rather than their disability. So when I refer to our guests, I would say, well, this individual has autism, or it's a girl with Down syndrome, or a boy with Down syndrome, because they're a person first. And on top of that, yes, they have a disability. We're not ignoring that fact, but we're recognizing them as a person and as an individual. So looking at some examples of people first language or person first language, so we would say a person with Down syndrome, not the Downs person, not the Downs boy, and not Mongol. Mongol is not a term that is used anymore. I remember way back when I was in school, it was acceptable to say. It's considered a derogatory term now. A person who has been diagnosed with autism, or an individual with autism, trying not to refer to them as the autistic kid or the autistic or he's autistic. I mean, if you say these things, it's not the end of the world. It's just we're trying to move forward with person first language, recognizing our guests as people. So a person with an intellectual or cognitive disability, we don't use the word mentally retarded or slow. We don't say not normal. So what is normal anyway, right? So we're trying to kind of focus on the positive, because if you imagine everywhere you go that people kind of refer to you in a negative way, we're trying to turn that around and bring some positivity and let these individuals know that they're welcome and loved. So we're trying to avoid some offensive terms, and what I asked you to do last year, and I'll ask you to do it again. I'm going to read these terms, and if you close your eyes and then think about the mental image that comes up when I say each term. So if you close your eyes, and I'll just read them. Handicapped, retarded, not normal, autistic, Downs kid, wheelchair bound, victim of, suffers from, infirmed, unfortunate. Okay, so you can open your eyes now and then think about, when I read each term, what was the image that you got in your mind? Was any of those images a positive image? And that's just, the reason I did that is to make you think a little bit deeper about the reason why we're trying not to use those terms, because immediately you're thinking of the individual in a negative light. A lot of individuals don't see themselves as unfortunate. They are very positive and upbeat. They know their limitations. Some of our guests may not know their limitations, but it's our role really to make them feel welcome and to try not to use negative terms where possible. So just something to keep in mind. And if you have any questions about that, please write them down and we can talk a little bit more when you come in for your formal training in January. Okay, so some signs that your guests may need a break is very important. So if you look at the sign on the slide, it's showing you the sign language, the American Sign Language sign for break. So basically it's holding your two hands together and it's like you're breaking a stick. If you see your guests doing that, they're telling you that they need a break. I would not delay in giving them a break. I would immediately ask where the quiet room is and get somebody to escort you to the quiet room. And then there will be people in there to help you. I'll be around. I'll be floating the whole night. So feel free to, I'll have a walkie-talkie. So feel free to call me anytime, and I can basically run to wherever you are if you have an issue. So one sign will be they'll cover their ears. Basically, they're trying to block out all of the stimulation that's going on around them. They're telling you it's too much and they've had enough. So that would be a good time to give them a break. They're trying to run away. That's an obvious one. You have to run after them if they run. Also alert people at the doors so that we can prevent them from leaving. The main thing is that we keep them inside the building. If they're running away, after we've got them, we'll lead them to the sensory room, and there's people who can help you do that. We only had a couple last year who did that. Mostly, most of our guests were happy to be either in the party room or where the food was. So it probably would only be a couple who would do that. Excessive humming or rocking. A little bit of humming and rocking is, okay. It's sometimes just what they do. If it gets really excessive, you could just ask them, do they want a break? If they seem to be, getting more and more agitated, then I would just lead them to the sensory room. Crying is an obvious one. It just means they don't want to be there. So the same would apply. We didn't really see any self-injurious behavior last year, but if we have a guest who is hurting themselves, immediately ask for help, and someone will help you get them to the sensory room. They actually ask you for a break is an obvious one, so then I would give them the break they're asking for, or using the sign for break in the picture that you see. Then they're asking you, please give me a break. So we already went over these, but we're going to talk about, again, what to do. So you can start by asking your guest if they need a break. If they don't respond, start to guide them towards the sensory room. If a guest is overstimulated, it's better to use as few words as possible, and to use a moderate to low tone of voice. So my voice is pretty loud. So what I do is I really bring my voice down like this to a whisper, make it quiet. And then as you're guiding them to the sensory room, try not to talk too much to them because they're trying to get away from noise. And if you're talking and tell them, oh, it's okay, don't worry, it can agitate them more. So the best thing to do is to just stay quiet. Tell them you're taking them for a break, and then to just quickly get them to the sensory room with help. And last year, everyone was really great. There was a lot of people around. There's always, if you need one of the, bigger, taller guys to help you, they're always around and they'll help. So last year was good. If a guest is not independent or having trouble in the bathroom, then please feel free to reach out for help. There should be monitors at the bathroom. So, don't feel like there's nobody to help you. So just remember, if you forget everything, just remember these key points. Speak to your guest as you would like to be spoken to yourself. Keep your conversation upbeat and positive, and see your guest as a person just like you, and you will do just fine. Most importantly, thank you for volunteering. This is a really good thing that you're doing. Last year was a huge success. Everyone did an awesome job. If you feel unsure about something, I'm here to help. I'll be rotating all rooms and be available to guide and assist where needed. Reach out to me on the night. Reminder, my name is Stephanie Ataya. Here are some people to reach out for assistance. You can reach out to me. You can reach out to Joe. You can reach out to Danielle. And you can reach out to Kathy. Also, if you really enjoyed working at Night to Shine, or you really enjoyed working at Night to Shine last year, please be reminded that I have just founded Stonecrest Enable, which is a ministry for individuals 7th grade and up with disabilities. So we're basically in a quiet room at the 11 o'clock service, and we hang out and we watch the sermon mainstreamed. So right now I'm looking for volunteers. All you would need to do is sign up for once a month, twice a month, or whenever you can do it. This ministry cannot run without you. I need help to do it, and I would really like to be able to tell the parents at Night to Shine that we have something here at Stonecrest for them, but I'm not going to be able to do that unless we have enough volunteers, because we really need to have the manpower to be able to run this ministry. So please reach out to me. It's Stephanie Ataya if you are able To do that, Joe has set up a sign up. So, like for every other ministry, there's a sign up on the rotation. Joe Ree has a sign up, and you can contact us and sign up for the Stonecrest Enable Ministry. Thank you.